It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Lieutenant Commander Retired Randy Schumacher.
Good morning, everyone. President Stenger, Major Wynn, ROTC faculty and staff, and parents, family, and friends of the graduating seniors. And finally, Binghamton University ROTC class of 2019. This is where you're supposed to say something, scream. Yeah! All right. Much of my military career was involved in training and development in one form or another, whether it was in aviation, in the cockpit, on surface ships, on submarines, whatever. And as a professional trainer, I've learned to tell stories to educate and inform my audience. My hope today is that the 4 very short stories I will tell that I've selected from my military career will advise these graduates, educate everybody, and hopefully entertain. My first bit of advice to these graduating seniors is always be an ambassador in and out of uniform. I've lived in my military career, I've lived in over 72 countries and 8.5 years overseas, and I absolutely loved it. And the one thing I've taken from that 24-year career, barring religious differences, barring cultural differences, there is but one difference between us and everyone else in the world. And the difference is between anyone in the world. And that is the level of prosperity that we have. And primarily, one of our goals in the military is to protect that way of life that we have come to know. My first story takes place in Germany in the late 80s. And my aircrew and I had a very difficult mission, and we decided to make a beer house our home for the evening. And as it was then, just as it is today, military members had to keep their head on a swivel in order to look out for terrorist activities. And as we got to the beer hall, I looked around, and I saw a very old, down on his luck German gentleman begging for money in order to have a beer. Well, I went up to the bar, ordered 2 beers, sat one down next to him, and to my surprise, he spoke perfect English. And I found that this gentleman was a comrade in arms. You see, he was a tank driver, an Army tank driver in World War II. And he had 3 tanks shot out from under him during the war. I guess he survived because of the excellent training he went through. I was also surprised that he was a submariner in arms, a fellow comrade. At the end of the war, he was conscripted into the submarine force. I was amazed to even meet this gentleman. And as I got up to leave, I opened my wallet and took out every German mark I had, and I gave it to him. He stood up and he thanked me, and he said, "But for the ravages of time, there was just one difference between he and I." Well, there I go, getting a little long-winded in my stories. My point is, when you have an opportunity overseas to impress anybody, to do a good deed, be that ambassador, because you represent a very high ideal, being an officer in the military and representing the United States. I talked about this German gentleman's training, how it saved his life. And as a senior expert in training and development, I write a lot of manuals, and I've read a lot of military manuals. Over the next 2 years or so, you're going to be doing a lot of military training. And those manuals that you're going to read, many of them contain written cautions. And cautions are put into military manuals because somebody was hurt not following the directions. And there are warnings in those training manuals. Warnings are put into military training manuals because somebody died because they didn't do these procedures. So read and pay close attention to your training in the next couple of years. It will save your life and maybe the lives of your colleagues. My training story is a classical beginning. It was a dark, stormy, rainy night out at sea. The 8th of December, 1993, the USS Independence. I was flying an E-2 Hawkeye. We were were 200 miles away from the ship when it pulled into a storm. And the Independence was bobbing and weaving in 60-foot swells. And we were listening to the radio, hearing our fellow aviators miss their landing and have to go around. Because we were the last and biggest airplane to come aboard the boat, we were delayed quite a while. And as our fuel began to run out, we finally had our opportunity to land. We didn't realize what was ahead of us. As we came down to land, my co-pilot broadcast on the radio, Clara, which in Navy terms means we can't see anything, it's a blind aircraft carrier landing. I was amazed that I even touched down on the flight deck. We bounced over all 4 wires and took off into the dark night. This is where training and fear fight each other. And fear took over the cockpit for my next pass around. I was so disoriented my second time around that the ship waved us off. And finally my fear was subsided and the training that I went through in the Navy kicked in. We made life or death decisions, flew out a little higher, a little farther out before we turned around. We only had one more pass, and then we were going to have to ditch. And in 60-foot swells, ditching meant sudden death for all of us. Well, I'm standing here today, so you already know the ending of the story. I must, yeah, thank you.
Nice bench.
I can only stress, and I wish somebody had told me when I was a young officer that the simulations, the training I was about to go through would eventually save my life someday. And I guarantee each and every one of you they're going to go through that training evolution that will come back to save your life. So please, I urge each of you, learn your training in the next 2 years very well. The third story I want to talk about is life or death decisions, just like the decisions I made that night to land aboard that carrier. It was a wonderful sunny morning in Sigonella, Sicily, and I was a medevac pilot on duty. Got a call, rushed to the airplane. My co-pilot had already got the engines started. In the back of my airplane was a doctor, a nurse, 2 parents, and a very sick 2-year-old little girl. We took off without a flight plan, and we filed airborne. Between Sigonella, Sicily, and Ramstein, Germany is the sovereign nation of Switzerland. And you just can't fly a military aircraft through Switzerland. You need a diplomatic clearance. And unfortunately, the embassy was either closed or they were too busy to answer the phone call to give us our clearance. As we approached the Swiss airspace, I called to the back and the doctor said we really needed to get there quickly. I could have flown around Switzerland and it would take another hour. I made the life or death decision to blow right through Swiss airspace, broadcasting that we were a military medevac, my side number, and where we were going to land. We landed, an ambulance came and took the doctor, the nurse, the parents, and the sick little girl away. And about 5 minutes later, an embassy official came up and took my wings away. I went back on my aircraft as a co-pilot to the chagrin of my former co-pilot, who was now his first time as an aircraft commander. Well, a month went by, and they finally convened a board. And after the board, the embassy official and my commanding officer agreed that they would put a letter of reprimand in my record, which would have effectively ended my career. As my commanding officer escorted the official out of the building, he turned to me and said, "Randy, you will never see that letter, because I would have done the same damn thing." That's not what made it the most rewarding mission of my life. About a month later, I'm laying on my couch on base in my home, and our homes had our names tattooed on them, just like our name tags on our uniforms. And I hear a knock at the door, and I open the door, and here is a mother holding her 2-year-old little girl. And she said, "Commander Schumacher, I heard what happened to you, and I just want to introduce you to the little girl's life you helped save." That life or death decision I made was easy. It was easy. I guarantee you, during your military career, you are going to make life or death decisions. Learn your training well. My last story is about this uniform, the uniform that you are about to wear as an officer in the military. I have long since hung up my uniform as a naval aviator, but before I go any further, I want to personally thank Sergeant First Class Chad Garrison, and more specifically his fiancée, Kristen, for giving me this opportunity and bringing my name forth as a speaker. You do not know how much this means to me. It is a rare privilege that is afforded to those who've served in the military to be allowed the opportunity to wear the uniform again. I can count on one hand when I'll wear this uniform. My son August is going to join Navy this fall, and I'll probably wear it at his boot camp graduation. My daughter Lily, I wore it once for her homecoming when she was a homecoming queen, and I will wear it again when I walk her down the aisle. And finally, my last professional performance on this mortal coil of the planet, when I am buried and laid to rest, I will be wearing this uniform. My story that I want to tell about this uniform, hopefully it's the best story I can tell you. It was a regular day. I'm in Atlanta airport, and I'm in uniform. I was working for the recruiting command then, when a very mean-looking, big biker dude started walking towards me. And as he got closer and closer, my heartbeat got louder and louder. And when he spoke, I swore my heartbeat was louder than his voice. And I didn't notice that he was holding the hand of a young boy. And he said, "Sir, it would be a real honor if you spoke to my son, because he wants to join the military someday." And as I felt the sense of relief that my life was yet again spared, I told him it would be a great honor. Men and women of the military, you cannot buy respect like that. It was earned from 243 years of gallantly, faithfully, and dedication of wearing this uniform. And I dare say when I first put on my uniform, I didn't earn it then, but you will. Serve your country proudly. And I want you to be an ambassador in that uniform. Oh yes, and that old German man who said that there was just one difference between he and I, he said, "Son, you were lucky enough to be born in the United States of America." And for 24 years, I thank my country every day I put on this uniform. I hope that you have the same passion I did for my military service. I wish you well. God bless graduating seniors. God bless your friends, family, the people that support you. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.